Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, November 16th, 2018. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's get started with a little bit of space weather. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 351.1 kilometers per second. Sorry about that. 5.7 is the density. And this is 2727. This is a new sunspot. It is very small and poses no threat for solar flares. Very tiny. You guys can probably barely see it. I'll see if I can get a better picture of it on SPACEWEATHERlive.com. But sunspot number 13, still stuck at 190 spotless days for the whole year of 2018. Our TCI is at 40 billion watts. And our KP indices, let me tell you guys, it's been very quiet. We've been sitting at a 0 for a while now, but earlier we did reach KP max of 1, but 75% of the last 72 hours, if not more, we have seen KP indices at a 0 to a 1 at most. So with the 6.5 earthquakes and above yesterday, definitely keeping an eye to see if we have any more seismic activity as well. There is our SDO image of our sun, and we are expecting a chance of some minor geomagnetic unrest. They're not going out and saying that this will be a full-on G1 storm, but there is a chance of some minor disruption on the 18th and 19th of November. There's that sunspot AR2727 as it is starting to turn away from Earth. And really, we're watching, this is the coronal hole area they're talking about. The solar wind's going to be flowing through. And watching the eastern limb, folks. Before I went on the air, I was kind of looking over here at, here is SPACEWEATHERlive.com. And I'll zoom in real quick. First, we'll show the sunspots. This is how small they are. You barely can see them. Just like the last one, 27, 26. But what I was looking at here is the backside of our sun, which is looking pretty good right now. Alright, so this is normally a good idea of what's to come. And we have seen some sudden activity right now from the far eastern limb of the sun, or western limb I should say. And what looks to be 3 sunspots, possibly. 1 in the southern region, 2 just above the equatorial region. And but still just curious to see what happens. And then there's another one back behind it. So we've been spotless for a lot of days this year here in 2018. And even if we stop right, even if we didn't get another spotless day, we're still way above what the entire year of 2017 was. And we'll go ahead and review that. And we were 104 days spotless in 17, so we've almost doubled the amount of spotless days in 2018. So just a possibility of a flurry of activity from our star. And taking a look at our TSI reading for November 8th, 2018, it came in at 1360.6914, still staying within that 0.6 value. Again, this TSI is not going to drop like a rock overnight or anything like that. And we have some headlines first before we get to any updates on Winterstorm Avery. Peru floods and landslides in San Martin and Cusco. Peru's National Emergency Operations Center has reported heavy rains that's caused flooding and landslides in the regions of San Martin and Cusco. Several small rivers have broken their banks in San Martin region, and authorities have warned that the Gaja River is rising and currently at a yellow level alert right now. India news agency reports that 1 person died. This was another river that broke its banks on the 13th. Another small river, Pakora, broke its banks in Pulvora, Touche province, damaging over 50 homes. With around 28 left uninhabitable, almost 100 people have been displaced in that region. Other parts, not as much damage, but these are remote areas. And it just seems like every day, if we're not talking about heavy snow amounts or heavy hail, we're talking about floods and landslides. Regions picking up multiple months of rainfall in just a couple of hours. Leave the link in the description. And over in Turkey, terrifying twin tornado touchdown caught on camera here in Turkey. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. Wow. So it says here, a serene day at the beach was rudely interrupted by not one but two giant tornadoes suddenly marauded through the provincial town of southern Turkey. While the vast majority of the residents and tourists evacuated Salanas Beach on Sunday, a few foolhardily photographers stuck around to film the massive sea spouts as they swept across the surface of the Mediterranean Sea. Wow, this guy really gets into his writing here. I really like how he flows these words together. Thanks a lot, buddy. One 31-year-old man was hospitalized after he was blindsided by his RV and blown over by the ferocious winds. And a beachside cafe was also heavily damaged, debris and strong gust. There's another image here, guys. This is the twin spouts. Look at that. Ugh. No thanks. It says here the Antalya province lashed by a powerful tornado in November 2017, injuring some 40 people as it tore up farms and uprooted trees. So not totally odd here that this part has a tornado, but definitely interesting that there was a twin tornado touchdown in Turkey. And tropical storm Gaja, it has made landfall, leaving at least 28 people dead. The storm brought heavy rain and strong winds to Tamil Nadu and areas of south interior Karnataka, and Kerala. According to the latest reports, at least 28 people were killed in floods, landslides, and other weather-related incidents. The death toll is expected to rise, unfortunately. As many as 81,000 people were forced to evacuate and are temporarily housed in 471 relief centers. The heavy rains have largely affected Munnar, one of the main tourist destinations in Idukki, and traffic was partially disrupted on parts of its Kochi to Shanganaki highway, and forgive me for butchering that one. Landslides were reported in Mamal and Edamal areas near Munnar, as well as various parts of Idukki. My producer, well, listen, Mari, I love you. Thank you for helping me with articles today, but we have a poet in one article, and this individual wants to name off every city that him and his homies are from. Oh boy, sorry guys, I am really butchering this. The bad news is that the storm did some damage, and there are stats to this storm here, guys, if you want to check it out. But this is no joking matter. I apologize. Bad place for humor, but it's difficult sometimes reading these articles, and some of these cities are a real tongue twister. So I'm just going to have to get more acquainted with maps and stuff like that. So sorry about that. Leave a link in the description. And Winterstorm Avery. All right, so this has been the talk since last night. There were parts where we are that got the 6 to 10 inches. Some spots got a foot. I know where we are located at, we got about 6 to 7 inches of snow. The roads were kind of bad, and I really think that for the most part, all the cities surrounding us did a decent job of clearing the roads, but they were pretty sloppy around 9 o'clock this morning still. So, but nonetheless, the snowstorm has now made its way out. And here are some snow totals. From Adams County, Lattimore had 8 inches. Cashtown, 7.2. This is Pennsylvania, guys. East Berlin, 7 inches. Lake Heritage, 6 inches. Bedford County in Bedford, we have 7.1 inches. Man's Choice, 7.1 inches. Reynoldsdale, 7.1 inches. Shelbyville, 6.8 inches. Cumberland County, 8.1. Mechanicsburg, 7 inches. 7 inches in Colonial Park. Hershey had 6. Elizabethville, 6 inches. Upper Stratusburg had 10 inches of snow. Greencastle with 9. Point Royal, 9.5. So you get the hint. A lot of folks saw anywhere from 4 to 10 inches of snow in Pennsylvania. And then we go over to the New York area. And as you see, Western New York also got pounded as well. We have a lot of 8-inch totals or higher from Central New York to Western New York, all the way across to upstate New York. No less than 6 inches fell in most of the state of New York. So this was a pretty powerful storm, if you ask me, for November 15th, 2018. Hands down. And I saw a lot of articles. There was tons of stuff I could have covered tonight. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. But not the funny part, but the most consistent thing that I saw during my search tonight for some content was, all these city officials now offering excuses on why they were unprepared and why this happened and why it. And, I didn't bother to read most of them, but at this point, they're just excuses, and it doesn't really make up for what some of these folks went through last night. Anywhere from people who were caught on the interstates and the highways, for the folks who were shut out of the busing transit facilities, just the unnecessary delays that I feel like there was so much neglect towards the prep of this storm because of how early it is, and nobody really thought that it would actually fall. But we've had the conditions over the last 48 hours before the snowfall were priming the area for this, and the ground was frozen. Obviously, when it fell, it stuck right away. There was no issues with that. Today, temperatures got up in the mid-30s, so it was more of just a wet roadways today. Most of the grassy areas still covered. Still say about 5 to 6 still, even after some melt. But anyway, so moving along, and we'll have more on this storm system. I think Mari's going to kind of try to find some totals and put it all together on what got what. But wintry weather pattern will bring more snow to the Northeast, Midwest following Avery's East Coast punch. This came out 3 hours ago. And I'll get to this just in a minute, guys. But this, I thought, was priceless. I want all of you to witness this with me.
November in almost 3 years due to a big dip in the jet stream. It's also bringing a lot of cold air down. Now, this could be a precursor for what we see for temperatures this winter. The forecast right now is calling for below average temperatures for the...
All right. So let me zoom this in a little bit, guys, because I got some maps to show you. The Weather Channel, which, by the way, let's tell the truth here. The Weather Channel is, I've seen it on their channel, watching their content. They push man-made global warming, climate change, chaos, whatnot. These storms, I've heard them with my own ears. The Weather Channel, talk about how we're warming, and pretty much they hold hands with NOAA for the most part. But I find it funny, and not only did Weather Channel update it, but still, this was the forecast outlook that came out in the beginning of November. And NOAA says that we had a 33% chance to a 60% chance that it was 50% chance in the Northeast that we were going to be warmer than normal. And that the bulk of the country throughout the central. Now, here's the funny part. Texas, you're supposed to be about 40 to 50 degrees or 40 to 50% warmer. There's a 40 to 50% chance that you're warmer for the month of November at this point. Same thing in the Northwest. We've had a bit of mixed bag out there, but I find it funny how the Weather Channel is actually like paying attention for once and using some science. And I read this article, and I'll read it back to you guys. First of all, they're showing us things like this. Most of us know what this is. We're passing this around everywhere. That's the positive snow coverage right now. These are the anomalies. We've also seen charts that show how the Northern Hemisphere is already above average snowfall and snow cover for the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm kind of surprised that the Weather Channel is not trying to hide this, because NOAA's still pushing that train that, hey, we're going to be warmer. This is the outlook from December to February. Now, they did come out with an upgraded map today, and it didn't change much. The actual white area moved up into southern New York, but they're still calling for upstate New York and beyond a 50% chance of warmer than average temperatures. And for the whole month of November, it's been nothing but below average here. We had a couple pleasant days in the beginning of November, and that was it. But the Weather Channel. Prolonged November cold and early snowfall are helping to raise the odds of a persistently cold winter in the east, according to the latest outlook from the weather company at an IBM business. Now, this is totally independent from NOAA. The United States has had its most expansive November snow cover in almost 3 years due to a plunge in the jet stream centered over central United States. This persistent upper-level trough has led to above-average snowfall, not only where snow is expected along the northern tier of the country, but also throughout much of the plains. The colder air and increased snow cover may set the stage for frigid weather to take over a good section of the country this winter. The overall trend calls for a colder than average winter in the eastern half of the country, while the west remains warm, according to the weather company's latest winter outlook. And here we have their December to February below average cold for areas such as Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, most of the South, Texas, near slightly below average in the Central Plains. And fitting with this weak El Nino, the other part of this is about right. This is lining up. During each of the 3 months of meteorological winter, December, January, and February, the temperature pattern is expected to be similar, with the temperature pattern colder air on the east coast across the south, while the warmer than average air remains in the northwest. The December outlook calls for the coolest weather and relative to average to be in the northeast and the southern half of Texas, while the northwest remains well above average. Warmer than average temperatures are forecast to expand much of the west coast and the northern Rockies in the first month of 2019. The core of the colder than average air is expected to shift to the Gulf Coast and much of the southeast. So here we go, guys. This is the temperature outlook in February is expected to be well below average. But NOAA says their outlook is warmer. Not according to the Weather Channel. I'm sorry, the Weather Company, an IBM business. Let's remember to include that. Yeah. So my point of this, and then they start talking about the jet stream. Bravo. The first factor that might change how winter shakes out is the strength of the polar vortex. November's big trough across the eastern U.S. gives us some idea that the polar vortex, the semi-permanent low pressure system that can refigure our nation's weather pattern, will be weaker this winter. And this is even a better point here that Weather Channel brings up. It says, at first glance, you would think that this is a good thing, talking about a weaker polar vortex. Like a quiet winter. But a weaker polar vortex actually allows more Arctic blasts to surge southward. So a weaker polar vortex allows more Arctic blasts to surge southward. This is because the air that circulates around the stronger polar vortex, again a low pressure system, maintains its momentum around the polar region. A weaker polar vortex is vulnerable to being thrown out of whack. Here they show the famous Greenland blocking and the dip in the jet stream. So there's not much here. Oh, and then here we go. Listen to this. This is more variable jet stream. This more variable jet stream idea is also supported by our current place in the solar cycle. It is thought that we are now within the year of the least active part of an 11-year solar cycle, meaning less heat is being directed at our equator. Less heat in the equator region generally means there is a less of a temperature gradient between poles and the equator, which leads to a weaker polar vortex and more opportunities for cold outbreaks in the U.S. Now, I did not see that before this show. I cannot believe that we have mainstream media talking about a solar... This is weather.com. These guys are global warmist up the butt. Weather Channel. Man-made global warming. They are pushing this nonstop. I have newfound respect for this channel. For the first time. I am getting choked up right now, actually. They've been denying it all over the internet. Everywhere. You talk to anybody that is a supporter of the AGW, and you talk about that, forget about grand solar minimum, okay? They just mentioned a correlation of the jet stream, the weak polar vortex, and the weakest part of the solar cycle, meaning less heat is being directed to our equator. This is huge. This is totally admitting that the sun has a huge part towards our climate. This is the truth for once. They are telling the truth for once. Finally, correlation in the mainstream media that solar cycles do affect the temperature. Look, they are saying this because they are meteorologists that do work for this company. I know the ones on TV you think are real. Some of them are. Most of them are just, they're props. They're actors, in my opinion. I don't think most of them understand it. There's a couple guys that know what they're talking about, but they're far few in between. But for so long, we've had so much I've talked to a lot of people in the mainstream media, weathermen all over the world, and they will not admit that the solar cycle or anything like that has anything to do with the temperatures on Earth. You always hear about how the grand solar mint won't even put a dent into global temperatures, but yet here we have the Weather Channel blubbering on about it's going to get cold. And they didn't talk about Modaki El Nino. Bravo to you. Again, this is a throat punch to NOAA. I've been in contact with NOAA on Facebook back and forth. They don't want to talk about Modaki. They just keep saying El Nino. Here's the Weather Channel talking about a Modaki El Nino. Super impressed, guys. And I think all of you should give them a second chance. Because in this article here, the truth finally comes out. And the reason why the Weather Channel, and this is where I was talking about how there are real weathermen that work there, real meteorologists. But the reason why they are they are rolling back the narrative is because the real scientists that do work at their channel see this pattern coming. They see it. They're matching the correlations. They know sunspots have a lot to do with the temperature of our planet, and they also know that multiple years back to back, and not only years but decades, but so if you think it's worse right now, this has only been back to back years where we've had over 100 spotless days. Think about it when we get into the grand minimum, where we have not only years of spotless days but decades of spotless days, and that's where you'll see the real drop in temperatures over time. But this is a huge indication, and I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I think it was Starman on Twitter, and he shows this I think it was him that showed the updated temperatures for the outlook of NOAA's winter forecast. And I commented, it's like the models don't even factor in solar minimums. It's like their models don't even go near that, because their numbers are grossly overdone. Now, they got the Northwest right. Good job, NOAA. You've got about 35% of your forecast correct. All right? But I'm going to go ahead and roll with the Weather Company by IBM Business. I like the report. They're telling the truth. Absolute truth. And like I said, this has got to be a throat punch to NOAA, because the Weather Channel has been such a strong supporter of man-made global warming. And a big argument in the man-made global warming community is that solar cycles do not affect the global temperature. They don't have effect at all. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be curious to see what we find out in December 1st or 2nd when Dr. Roy Spencer updates his findings. The Arctic, actually before the end of the month, unfortunately, is going to have a possible surge of like a stratospheric disturbance of sudden warming in the stratosphere. How that will affect the outcome for the temperatures up there. Last month they were at 1.11 Celsius above baseline. So that was the factor in why we saw the overall temperatures, because really some of the other temperatures went up a little bit, but not as much as the Arctic had went up. And again, 1.1 degrees Celsius above average. Average is still freaking cold. So let's not break out the buckets and clean up the melting ice yet. We still have a long way to go. And tonight was the first night I didn't pull up the national ice thing, but I'll show you guys later on Sunday. I got to double check and make sure Henrik's still a go for Sunday night, but 6 o'clock on Sunday is our weekend exit show. But this is important, guys. This is a huge first step in seeing a possible change in narrative. And I hope this video tonight gets shared with a lot of people. I hope this video gets shared to where maybe someone who's influenced by government officials or congressmen or senators or even local congressmen and local senators or just local politicians, period, somehow get this word out. Look at what's happening here. The Weather Channel used an independent report of their own without using NOAA data or going with what NOAA's been saying. And channels like us and others that have the similar topic have been saying the exact same thing that just came out of weather.com's mouth. We knew that we were going to have a cold northeast and snowy northeast. We knew we were going to see some tricky weather in the south. We talked about that this upcoming fall. We talked about it back in the summer. We also told you that it was going to stay warm and dry in California. Fire season was going to extend, especially if we had a Modaki El Nino. And the Northwest above average. The Central Plains and the Central States, this region here, I mean, this is correct. This is correct, and this is correct. But what's impressive is that we also talked about this area being cold as well. So I'm just glad to see that for once, things that we have actually spoke about on this channel are actually being correlated now into real life mainstream, where people who maybe just watch and just kind of like zombie through this. But I think this is a start. The fact that this article actually mentions solar cycles. I have never seen a mainstream meteorologist or weather company even talk about solar cycles. Period. I got to read it again. I was too excited when I first saw it, guys. I was stumbling. This more variable jet stream idea is also supported by our current place in the solar cycle. And we talk about low solar wind affects the jet stream. And they're now correlating that the more variable jet stream idea, the low solar activity, the low solar wind, makes it more erratic, is also supported by our current place in the current solar cycle. That is 100% correlating solar wind, it being low. They're admitting that we're at the rock bottom of the minimum. And when you're at the rock bottom, that's very low sunspots and very low solar wind, very low KP indices. And just to talk about the heat that is being transferred from the sun to our equator, and them admitting that we will have less heat and that will affect temperatures. I think this storm woke them up. Not just the amount of snow that fell, guys, but the cold temperatures. On how things got primed up, especially up here in the Northeast. I know not all of you out there are freezing your butts off right now. I get that. But for those of us who were ready for this cold, who knew this was going to happen, this was definitely the eye-opener, and we'll continue to monitor the weather. I'll show you guys the GFS, and to me, it shows more of the same over and over. We get shots of mild air, but nothing that sends us into a sunny day and wear shorts. Nothing near the 50s or 60s by any means. This is the GFS forecast for Saturday, and you see more snow moving into the Northeast. Once again, kind of dissipates and then reemerges by early Monday, and often to Atlantic. Snow showers throughout New York and the Northeast. A lot of the snow and colder air is staying in the Northeast only. Behind it, we're seeing more like seasonal temperatures back in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, the Central Plains, and we have a little bit of a system in the Gulf, but it kind of moves south, dies out, crosses over to Florida, then kind of gets some strength as it heads up the coast. We'll have to keep an eye on this low pressure system. Right now, it looks to be not affecting anything inland, but still a situation to watch as temperatures begin to drop as this thing makes its way up to the Northeast. Look out in the west as we have a low pressure system bringing heavy rain. By Sunday, November 25th, we actually started talking about rain showers a little earlier than that on the 23rd, and now GFS is indicating this is going to be a lot heavier in the northern part of California than we once thought. Snow in the higher elevations in Oregon and Washington, but plenty of rain to move through the 23rd and the 25th out there in California. Nice little low pressure snow system moving across the Central Plains over the Rockies, and then again another system on the 25th that will affect California, Nevada, and again Idaho and parts of Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and then shifts up north as well to the Dakotas, across Minnesota, Wisconsin. This storm gathers some huge strength after Thanksgiving, early the week after Thanksgiving. This low pressure system right now is going to be a mainly rain event for the most part, but as it makes its way to the Northeast, kind of like Avery, it runs into some colder air, and that turns into snow. And this system pulls out another one behind it, diving in from the Arctic, is also pushing that warmer air and turning this all to snow by the weekend in the Northeast. And right behind that is another system. Now, guys, look at this. So we've got to keep our eyes on the Gulf Coast. We've got we've got 3 possible systems that are moving right now like nor'easters. This is around the Monday, November 26th after Thanksgiving. And then we have another large low-pressure system that could affect the region, not quite like a nor'easter, but then right here at the end of the month, another system in the Gulf Coast, which then gains strength and starts going up the East Coast. So there's a good chance we will see possibly another light snowfall in the Northeast once again, some snow in the Northwest for now. It will get warmer out there again. California is going to get a soaker as well, and then it's going to kind of dry up a little bit in the West. Actually, we have another system entering on December 1st and sweeping across Northern California, but it does look like we have 2 systems to keep our eyes on at 2 different parts of the month. One here December 2nd, and the other system, I believe, is right here around the 24th, 25th of November. Right now it's nothing. It's off the coast. It's all rain anyway, but there is enough cold air in the Northeast that would support snow. Now, after that moves out, there's a good chance we will see some snow showers from that. Nothing too heavy, maybe a quick dusting, 1 to 3 to 2 to 4 inches tops in the New York and northeastern region. But then by the end of the November, into the 1st of December, we see another low pressure system kind of getting its act together. And guys, so far, what we were talking about in the South is happening. We're getting wave after wave of rain in the South, almost in every other 3-day period. So it's definitely stormy in the South. They're seeing ice and snow, like as predicted, and a lot of rain along the southern half of the southern states. And that's what the GFS is going to continue to show us as well. Let's take a look at a quick forecast, for our friends overseas in the UK. I'll let this move on here a little bit. Mari, I was curious to wonder if you were going to say hello while I'm showing the quick weather here across the pond to our friends out there.
We actually had Carlton, I think. Wait, was it Concerned Canadian? Oh, shoot, I forgot which one was it? It was Concerned Canadian. He's concerned. And he's Canadian, Jake, because when you show tropical tidbits, it's a little bit too southern. It's not north enough for our neighborly friends in Canada.
I'll tell you what.
Hi, everyone in the chat.
We see, I just want to interrupt real quick. It looks like we start getting some colder air. There is going to be some warmer air in this region, but then after that, we will start to see temperatures drop again, and the radar is showing that as well, as we will get some snow towards the end of the month in Romania, Bulgaria, and across Poland, and also into parts of Russia as well. But go ahead, Mari, sorry.
We have a lot of new people in the chat, a lot of people I have not seen before. Welcome to GSM. It's a pleasure having you all in the chat. Those coming back, it's always a pleasure seeing you every night in the chat. There's a lot of learning going on in the chat. Rob is educating people on glacial and interglacial periods, because that does get confusing, the timelines and stuff. When you're sorting through the data, there's so many different charts and stuff. So maybe we should have something about that in a couple days. Simplify it for people, break it down in layman's terms.
Sure.
We're good at that, aren't we?
You know, it's unfortunate, the tropical tidbits. I wish I could find a good map. I'll have to keep searching for our friends up north in Canada, because I do know we have quite a few people from Canada that watch this. I'll work on trying to find something that will show us, because I want to show everybody, look at the snow totals down in the northern part of the United States, but we can't see what's going on up here, and that's going to be a part of the reason why we will see the colder air continue to flow down. If you guys continue to have snowpack like that up there, it's going to make it that much easier for that cold air to travel. Mari, did you have anything else? I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I just, it's, I'm enjoying watching. I could not type anything, just read the chat and enjoy people communicating with one another. We have a great community here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. There's a few people talking about how they're starting to really enjoy the Discord chat, how they're learning a lot. So I will post the link again to our Discord chat. And it's just a nice place to go to when we're not streaming live and in the chat here. I am guilty the past few days. I have not been in there a whole lot. I do pop in every now and then, but definitely get in there and just have it to ask questions. Pop in, say hi to us when we're not on air. It's a great little resource for people in the GSM community.
All right, thank you, Mari, for keeping us update on everyone who's in the chat. We really appreciate your guys' support. That's going to do it for us again tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Again, schedule permitting, we will have Henrik joining us on Sunday night, 6 p.m., do a weekend wrap-up show. And maybe we'll have some more information about snow totals in different states, because there was tons of states that we probably could have got in, but still not getting the official results at all spots just yet. So we'll continue to search for those numbers, and we will talk soon, guys. Sunday night, 6 p.m. Take care.